Hello everyone, today in our writing lesson we're going to focus on an introductory part about simple sentences for the intensive course writing. So for this part it will be an introduction to the elements of what makes a simple sentence or sentences in general. So for this introduction part we're going to talk about several things. The first is the subject, which is the main element of a sentence. Second will be the main verb or the predicate, and the third will be the object, and lastly we're going to talk about phrases and how they are used in a sentence. Now to start with, we want to know what exactly is a sentence. Usually the smallest part of meaning that we communicate is a word. For example, apples, that is a word. But do you really communicate that way with people? For example, do you say to the person next to you or to your friend, apples, something like that? Of course you don't. For starters, what kind of apples are you talking about? Okay, I'm talking about delicious apples. Now, delicious apples, if you see there, is made up more than one word, but it still refers to the same thing, which are basically apples. In this case, we just want to add info to it and say it's a delicious apple. So a phrase, we can say, is a group of words that actually refer to the same thing or have a unified meaning. Now if you think about the dialogues you have with your friends, you also don't just say delicious apples. What about delicious apples? You can say, okay, I eat apples. That's how usually normally a lot of our communication with people are in the form of a sentence. This is especially true when you are doing writing. Now what exactly make this one a sentence instead of just a group of words or phrase? Now the first thing is that there are different functions fulfilled by each of these elements. For starters, the I there is a subject. The I, the subject, does something which is eating, or in this case the main verb is eat. I, the subject, does an action which is eat, and what is being eaten? Apples. So apples will become the object here. Now a sentence here has what we call a complete meaning, because when you say this sentence to someone, they know that okay, you want to say that you eat apples. So the simple sentence definition in here is that it contains one subject, one main verb, and optional one subject. But however, we need to know, why do we need all this knowledge in the first place? Of course, the first thing you want to do is to avoid sentence problems. This is especially important if you're writing an academic setting or a formal writing. In an informal writing, on the other hand, you might get away with a lot of grammatical mistakes, or in what we call the poetic language, they do not really follow the basic grammatical rules because they are artful language. And of course you want to make clear, not ambiguous meaning when you want to communicate in that manner, in the academic and the formal writing manner. And of course you want to sound smart. So all of this basic knowledge will help you to check your sentences that you wrote, especially if you are a beginner in English, so that you can detect what is wrong with your sentences. So let's start with the subject and the main verb, which is the basic component of a sentence. We have a sentence here: the cat sleeps. Now the cat here is the subject. It does something, and the thing that it does, the action, will be the main verb, which is sleep. So the cat is the actor, not the one who is acting like in films or movies, but instead it do something. And what does the cat does? What does the cat do is sleeping. So the cat does the action, the cat is the subject, the action is sleep. Sleeps is the main verb or predicate. Now this is what we call the intransitive sentence because it does not have an object. Now we call the main verb here as stative verb because the subject does the action to itself, so it does not require an object. Now the second type of the sentence we are talking about here, the subject plus main verb plus object. For example, we have this fighter over here, if you recognize him, Khabib, which is the guy on the left with the red band on his gloves, punched Conor. Now we have the third element here, which is Conor. Khabib is the subject. The main verb will be to punch. Now he punches something, and in this case it is the object, Conor. So Khabib is the actor, the person who does the action, yeah, and the action is the main verb. There is another element here, which is the object, which is Conor, the receiver. So Khabib does the action. Khabib is the subject. The action is punch. Punched in this case because it is put in a past tense, because the punching happens before this time, is the main verb or predicate. Conor receives the action. Conor is the object. Now we call this one, instead of intransitive sentence, we call this a transitive sentence because the subject, which is Khabib, transports something, which is an action, which is punching, and Conor received that, felt the pain. So there is the subject and there is the object. We call this a transitive sentence. So let's move on to the more technical part of a transitive sentence. The Khabib, which is the subject, is a noun. So a subject is always going to be a noun, which is something. And punched, which is the main verb, it has to be verb 1 for present forms, verb 2 for past forms, or to be, which is mr, plus verb 3, or to be plus verb ing. So any main verbs has to be these forms and nothing else. Conor, which is an object, also similar to the subject, is a thing. So the main verb here, remember, is a transitive verb. So what is the importance of recognizing all these elements is that you can actually identify a correct or incorrect sentence. For example, Khabib punched Conor. That is the correct sentence if you just wrote the subject there and a adverb, for example, yesterday. It misses a main verb, so it lacks a main element of a simple sentence. Therefore, this is not a sentence. Or you want to write the main verb in the wrong form. For example, verb ing by itself, like punching, cannot be a main verb. So we call this not a sentence as well, because it does not follow the grammatical rules. And punching Khabib Conor, you want to play around with the order of subject, main verb, and object. And the result is that it's ambiguous. Who is punching who? Is it Khabib punching Conor? Is it Conor punching Khabib? Or is punching is the subject? This is not a sentence. We call these fragments. Now, this has an incomplete meaning. What we mean by that is that if you suddenly say to a person, punching Khabib Conor, for example, that person will not understand exactly what are you trying to say. That is what we call with incomplete meaning. Now, actually, we have to be really honest that nobody uses that kind of very, very short sentence like we just had. Example, if you write a paragraph containing just very short, simple sentences, you will have something like that. Khabib punched Conor, Conor punched Khabib, Khabib demolished Conor, Khabib defeated Conor. It will be very boring. So what do we do to increase the attractiveness of this kind of sentence? First of all, you should write in phrases, a group of words with the same function. The function here is to add additional information. You can also put adverb and preposition as extra information to a simple sentence. Now let's try to do this now. We're going to use the same sentence, which is Khabib punched Conor, but instead of just these three elements, we provide another element, another function, which is additional information on the blue there. So let us go with an example with Khabib punched Conor yesterday, which is an adverb. We can also put in a preposition with Khabib punched Conor in the face. Now, the subject, verb, and object stay the same in this case. It's Khabib. The subject punched is still the main verb and object is still Conor. The additional information, you can remove them and this sentence will still be a grammatically correct sentence, although a bit boring. To avoid being boring, you can add those adverb and preposition. Adverb explain the whole sentence. In this case, adverb of time yesterday changes the tense of the sentence. That's why you get the main verb to become punched. And it also explained the whole action, the whole thing that happened, whole topic of the sentence happened yesterday. Preposition always starts with in, on, at, with, beside, under, and a lot more. But for now, we will just focus on these basic prepositions. And also, preposition is always in the form of phrases, and you can also change the adverb into more than one word, which is also phrases. Now, phrases can create a long, although still a simple sentence. Let's see how that works. For example, you want to really put a lot of detail on Khabib, and you want to describe him as much as you can. We can change the subject from just one word Khabib into the Russian UFC fighter with black hair and beard. We can also change the main verb. Instead of just punch, we want to let people know that it was a quickly and powerfully punched. It was quick and powerful. The object we can also explain more, add more details, and changing it into a phrase by his Irish opponent with thick beard and large tattooed chest. Now, in this case, they do not change the function, only the length. The Russian UFC fighter with black hair and beard, it's still the subject. It is still the same person. It is still Khabib. The punch, although it has been detailed with a quickly and powerfully, it is still the same action because the main idea of this is still punching. And also Conor is still that person. So the function does not change. However, the lengths change. In this case, the function is more important. It does not change the fact that this is still one subject, one main verb, and one object. We just make them more detailed. Now, let us summarize what we have learned so far. So the first thing is that the subject and main verb are the main requirements for a sentence. For example, she walks. She is the subject, walks is the main verb. The cat sleeps. The cat is the subject, sleeps is the main verb. These are what we call intransitive sentence because they do not have an object. Next is that one subject, one verb, and objects are the main characteristic of simple transitive sentence. So you need objects for this one. Examples are I eat apples. He punched his opponent. There is the object apples and his opponent. So we call these transitive sentence. And for additional info, you can always add prepositional and adverbial phrases. These phrases are not sentences because they only serve a function and they do not contain a subject and a main verb. And function, not length, is the focus here. So not all simple sentences are actually simple. For example, the penguins were dancing on the beach. You do not require an object for this one. And also, you can put object first. For example, Conor was punched in the face. So this is a reversal, and this is derived from the sentence that we studied a while ago. Khabib punched Conor, but in this case, Conor was punched in the face. So how does that happen? And also you can use more than one object, like Peach gave Mario the cake. Well, Peach gave Mario. Mario receives something from Peach. That's why Mario is the object. But how about the cake? Because there is no preposition there is no in, on, at, with, beside, under. That is not a preposition. That is also the object. So what happens with that? And we can also have more than one subject or a verb. Luigi ate the cake that Peach gave Mario. Now this is not a simple sentence. Now if you want to know more about this kind of sentences and the explanation for them, tune in to our next video which will discuss about this. So that's all for the lesson today, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.